Smell is good, by the way. Be very gentle, by the way, with this. Ciao and welcome. Today I'm cooking butter beans in a creamy tomato sauce with vodka and Sicilian breadcrumbs. Butter beans are ideal for dishes like this because they are soft and creamy, quite neutral in flavour, and they absorb the flavour of the sauce very nicely. And I start by adding some olive oil in a pan. I have also sliced a red onion in relatively small pieces if you look, and that is ideal for this dish because it will release some sweetness and it will combine beautifully with the butter beans. I've left to sizzle for a couple of minutes and I'm now going to add a couple of cloves of garlic, which I will be crushing in, and I'll leave it on a medium temperature, and the garlic will become sweet and mellow rather than sharp. This is tomato puree. I'm going to add the equivalent of 1 tablespoon, and I'll mix it in for a few minutes, and this will give the sauce a beautiful color and also body. Chili flake, just a little pinch to add a little warmth, and I will leave everything to cook gently for about 5 minutes at a medium temperature. I mentioned vodka earlier. I'm going to measure 1 shot, which is approximately 40 milliliters. This might sound unusual, but the vodka will help the tomato and the chili releasing its flavor, and also it will deepen the flavor of the sauce. I've waited until the alcohol element from the vodka has evaporated, and here are my butter beans, and just as they are, with the water included, I'm going to pour them in. I'll turn the temperature up and I'll bring it to the boil. Also, some people prefer to drain the water from the beans. By all means, do that if you wish. If you were to do so, though, replace the water from the beans with 60 milliliters of hot water. But the water from the beans is very silky and velvety, and it will actually enrich the flavor and also the texture of this dish. I've turned the temperature down and left the beans to simmer for about 5 minutes. Good time to add some cream or some yogurts. I'm going to choose an healthier option, and I'm going to add some homemade natural yogurt. This is made with full fat milk, by the way. Important that the temperature is lower, by the way, if you're using yogurt. You can replace yogurt with double cream if you wish. It will be slightly heavier, but also still very delicious, of course. If, like me, you're using yogurt, by the way, you will get the odd little speckle, which is perfectly normal. It's a feature of using yogurt. Whereas actually, if you're using cream, you will see that you get a much smoother finish. Preferences, as always. I turn the temperature up to bring everything to the boil, but I'll turn it down again, and I will leave it until the sauce becomes smooth and silky. In the meantime, I'll make my Sicilian style breadcrumbs, and I'll start with a little olive oil in a pan. Once again, I'm keeping the temperature on medium, and I'm going to add 1 large clove of garlic. Again, I'll crush it using my crusher, followed by 3 dessertspoons of dry breadcrumbs. There we go. Now that I've added the breadcrumbs, I'll temporarily turn the temperature up, and I'll mix the oil with the breadcrumbs together, and I'll wait until everything starts sizzling. I've got here some salt and pepper. I'll add a little, and I'll continue mixing, still on a high temperature, until they start browning now. If you keep turning the breadcrumbs and you stay on top of them, you can keep the temperature on high, and the breadcrumbs will toast gently and the garlic will not burn. You can see that as they caramelize, the breadcrumbs are beginning to change in color, and look, can you see that there is already a different shading of color at the bottom? Nearly there. And that is perfect. I'll turn this off, so all I want is a gentle golden color, and they're ready. And having finished the toasted breadcrumbs, I can now move on to Sicilian style touch number 2. I've got some rustic bread, which I'm slicing first, some olive oil in a little glass jar, and a pinch of oregano. And using a brush, I'm quickly apply the mixture on top of my bread. Just a little is enough to give that Mediterranean flavor, and I'm doing both sides, by the way. And I'll pop them on my grill and I'll toast both sides. And you might have never tried this, and if you haven't, maybe you should. I've got a new clove of garlic. I'm going to chop it in half first, just like this. Get the glove off now, and I'm going to use it on top of each slice. Literally just rub it on top like this, and the garlic will release its flavor on top of the hot bread, So do ensure you do this whilst the bread is hot, and you will see that as soon as you apply your raw garlic on top of hot bread, the smell coming up is really nice. So just switch for the other part if you want, and do all of it. And back to my butter beans, which are nearly ready. Actually they are ready, so let's turn them off, and you can see what I meant. A beautiful smooth and silky finish. That is exactly what I wanted. I'll start first of all by applying a tiny little amount of olive oil. I'll do that now and later, followed by some this is grana padano. You can also use, of course, parmigiano reggiano, just enough to cover the top. I left the salt and pepper until the end, so I can go in now. Some pepper and some salt. Before I serve a portion, let me show you a little tip. You might want to do this actually. So here are my beans, and they are velvety already. However, if you just get a fork and just go on top and mash a few, about 5 or 6, just like this, maybe 8, and then mix it together all again, and that will make the dish even creamier, by the way, and more velvety. Can you see what I mean? The sauce is beginning to be a little bit thicker. Just a little trick which goes a long way. Anyway, we waited enough, so let's dish a portion and see what it's like. Smell is good, by the way. I mentioned olive oil earlier. This is one very final drizzle on top like this. Toasted breadcrumbs, just sprinkle them on top. Very Sicilian. And a very final little touch, some lemon zest. Be very gentle, by the way, with this. Does it look alright?
And it does. Looks like it needs eating.
So the bread is toasted with olive oil and oregano and a little coating of garlic, and let's see what this is like now. So I just want to pick some and have a little shot. Crunchy, delizioso. Sometimes when you combine simple ingredients together, you end up with some of the most amazing flavors, and this is one of those dishes which is at face value quite rich if you make it with double cream, but if you make it with yogurt, it's still very delicious and creamy and a little bit healthier. Ciao, thank you for watching. Hopefully you make it, and buon appetito as always.